2, 1, and we're live with another edition of Notes on the Newsfeed. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Fabulites. I'm Angela and the channel is Be Fabulous You. Notes on the Newsfeed is my segment where I share with you headlines from my newsfeed because we got to get a survey, we got to get a sense of what's going on in the world. And also, we're not looking necessarily at the trees, we're looking at the forest. Because sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. So we're getting a general survey of what's going on. Hello, polka dot waterfall. Ooh, don't go chasing waterfalls. So that's what we're going to do. So it's not news, as the title says. It's just my notes on the news. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, and joining us live or on playback. Let us proceed with the notes on the news. Daylight savings time actually may be bad for our health and cost us money. Here's why we should end it. So, I was told, and they say it's a false rumor, it's not the truth, that daylight savings time I was told two things. That it had something to do with farmers. Farmers wanted it, and that it was for the children, so the children wouldn't have to walk back and forth to school in the dark. I find the whole changing back and forth with the time, I don't understand. And I had one client I used to work with. She might have been in Arizona, but there are some places that do not do daylight savings time. And so it would be so confusing when the change happened and the change didn't happen in her jurisdiction, and trying to get those times recalibrated. It was very confusing. But they say it's the adjusting to the change is a problem. And I think that the rate of heart attacks goes up 25% when we lose an hour, and it goes down 21% when we gain an hour. So it seems like there's a net loss. And why all this back and forth? Why can't, I don't like it. I mean, it's not a big deal, but I adjust. Winter storm dumps snow and knocks out power on U.S. East Coast. So we've been following that a little bit. Jessica Jones star Kristen Ritter explains the impact of having all women directors for season 2. I can go into deeper places. Now, I didn't know, I don't watch Jessica Jones. I'm not familiar with the show, or I guess it's a show. But I know that Miss Ava DuVernay did that over on OWN with Queen Sugar. I think all of the directors for Queen Sugar are women. So I'm just saying, I mean, I don't know who pioneered it, if either one of them pioneered it. But we know that Miss Ava DuVernay does that over on the OWN network with Queen Sugar, one of my favorite shows. Ritual, a female-founded vitamin startup, is donating all of today's proceeds to girls who code. So there's this thing. I didn't pull any articles on the child who's married to Kanye West. But there's some conversation going on like, stay in your lane. You're not a feminist. You're releasing these emojis trying to make money off of Happy International Women's Day, off of International Women's Day, I mean, I guess I kind of feel like I don't really feel any way. I feel like, I don't know. I just feel like, welcome to America. Welcome to capitalism. Like, I just, I don't know. Maybe I need to be educated. What do I need to understand in order to be outraged about the emojis or Ritual, a female-founded vitamin company, because it sounds like a commercial to me, this headline, because I never heard of Ritual. I didn't know that it was a female-founded vitamin startup, but now I know they're donating proceeds to girls who code. So it's like an advertisement. Maybe I'll go, if I'm interested in the issue, to their website and learn more about them, and so it's sort of like positive press or whatever. Julius H. Taylor, second African-American to earn doctorate in physics from the University of Pennsylvania. So that's a name I wasn't familiar with, but, we just like to increase our awareness of different people. Facade of abandoned Greek revival home stolen. then found at an antique shop. And when I saw the image, I'm like, oh, I know that house. I walk by it all the time in my walks. I didn't even know it was in my neighborhood, but it is coming off of Detroit Curb. But what was confusing to me was the facade part, because I'm like, the facade of the house, I'm thinking that's like the whole front part of it. But it was just a little, the area over the door. But, and I've been seeing they've been working on it. Somebody was like, oh no, y'all not going to be, you know, reducing the historic value of our neighborhood, coming in here robbing and taking facades and taking them over to the whatever antique shop. And the antique shop is like, we have been in business for years doing good business. And we bought this legally. So I'm like, International Women's Day, Spain's workers in feminist strike. So, you know, I guess they're doing a protest to show what happens if you don't have women. I think that's what they're like. I think they're walking out of work to show, you know, women have an impact on the world. You might be able to tell if someone is a cheater just by listening to their voice. And they say that women are more sensitive in this way than men, and that you know, they don't really, I don't think the story explained the science, but you know, that there seems to be a correlation. Like when people guess, they're right. So trust your instincts, I guess, you know, in that and all things. I definitely, it's no guess, and trust your instincts, Tiffany Haddish's clapback at Twitter hater who called her D-list in the most unapologetically black way ever. I don't really care about, well, I guess one thing, I just feel like I wish that Miss Tiffany would just, like, you know, don't pay attention to people who are talking, you know, I don't know, just, girl, don't even worry about, you know, making comments to people like that. But what I did want to talk about and kind of explore is this idea of Tiffany Haddish. I like her brand. Now, I didn't see Girls Trip, so I didn't realize that this is an extension of what is advertised in Girls Trip. But I like the idea of, instead of someone trying to show, oh, I'm rich and I'm spending all the money and I got so much money and I'm spending, you know, I like her, you know, re-wearing that dress 3 or 4 times and making a point of it. I like her, you know, being a spokesperson for Groupon. Not necessarily because I've never used Groupon. I don't have anything for or against it. But I like the idea of, you know, her being like, you know, coming across as like an advocate for frugality. We're in favor of frugality. Hey, welcome on the chat. So, you know, that's, I just wanted to kind of speak to that idea. Like so many people, it seems like, you know, they're like advertisements for conspicuous consumption and just consumption, you know, and I agree about wearing that dress multiple times. That's real, right? And then I was watching on the Sister Circle, I guess her stylist, who has, they say she has a YouTube page, but when I went to the YouTube page, it was like it seemed to be a small page. I couldn't figure it out. But the woman, Style Lounge on YouTube, I think that's what I understood. But the woman was saying that, you know, the way that you usually rework things into your wardrobe, and maybe she's speaking specifically about, you know, A-list people or, you know, I don't know, but that you know, wear it once a year. And it's like, the formal things that I have, you know, I have 3, 4, 5 things, but I mean, I wear them. Anyway, right. Regular people, you know. And then I think there was like somebody who was like royalty or something. And there was like this thing like, oh my gosh, we've seen her in this outfit before. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And like, what is, you know, we need to cut it out. So I like that brand. That's all I want to say. Starz acquires The Rape of Recy Taylor, and I had heard about this film being made. 6 other docs sets premiere dates, so I don't know when The Rape of Recy Taylor is going to be on Starz. I'm excited that it's going to be on Starz because I want to see it. This was a woman who I believe was like gang raped, and she wouldn't shut up about it, you know, like, and this was like, I think back like maybe like 1920, I don't know, don't quote me on it, but it was like a black woman who was gang raped by some white men, and she just wouldn't shut up. You know, they kept trying, you know, and I guess, you know, I don't necessarily care for the name. Like, you know, I wish it was like the strength of Recy Taylor or something. Hey, Queen Bianca Brooks. I wish, you know, I just wish the orientation was like more positive, but I like, you know, not shutting up because, you know, I feel like there is a time to be quiet without wearing dress multiple times. You talking about Tiffany Haddish. Yeah, I feel like there's definitely there are times to be quiet, and there are times, right, you can't tell me when to stop telling my story, born out of the hurt that you caused. Right. I feel like there are times to be quiet, and then there are times to speak up. And I think a lot of times it's good for us, you know, as women, as Black folks, as just human beings, to have examples and models of people who won't shut up. So I feel like whatever I'm feeling about the comedian Monique, I feel like one thing that I appreciate, and I'll say again, I'm glad she feel like she has something to say. She feels like she was wrong, and I feel like the issue of women and Black folks and Black women making less, Black folks making less, Black women making the less, that's a real issue. So I feel like I'm glad. I don't think she should shut up. I think she should keep talking. If that's something that's important to her, don't shut up. So, you know, I'm interested to see the rape of Recy Taylor. It's easy for me to watch stuff on Starz. Some of these other channels, it's more challenging. So I really need to get the date and put it in my calendar because I really do want to watch it. Although sometimes, you know, like that's why years ago I had stopped watching Lifetime, because it's like, you know, just like how people feel about, you know, Black folks, like, oh my God, another slave movie. And then like when I was watching Lifetime, I'm like, dang, all of the women in Lifetime, it seemed like they getting stalked, they getting beat, they getting killed, they getting shot, they getting raped. Like, it just seemed like television for women, Jamie Foxx said Tiffany Haddish is a queen of comedy. What do you think of that? I think she's a great actress, but I don't think she's funny. I'm not familiar with her work. You know, I guess I've heard her on Jamie Foxx's satellite station, which, does anybody know what's going on with that? Because the car had to get reset, and now we can't find the Jamie satellite station's comedy station anymore, and it's been replaced by the short dark-skinned comedian. His name is there, so I'm like, what happened? But you know, comedy is like personal to me. Like, what's funny to one person is not funny to another person. And then the way I listen to stuff and I'm like, you know, it's kind of like sometimes as Black people, you know, if you have a certain consciousness, you can't just watch stuff because you be like, oh my God, the imagery of Black. And I listen to comedy, I'm like, why are they making fun of women? Why are they making fun of fat people? Why? You know, it's like, it's not funny to me. Kevin Hart. So I used to have on satellite, I think it was like 96, Jamie Foxx was like his comedy station. And now all I can find are Kevin Hart comedy stations, and I'm like, what happened to Jamie Foxx? But I feel like comedy is, I didn't see Girls Trip, so I don't know if she's funny or not, but or, you know, I don't know if she's funny to me or not. And when I've heard her on Jamie Foxx's station, she was all right. You know, I feel like some of the people on YouTube, like sometimes I'm listening, like and it's like a guilty pleasure because I might not want to, you know, talk about somebody who, you know, powder donuts, or I might not say that kind of stuff, but I do think it's funny, Queen Bianca Brooks. I mean, you know, but I might not be out in public saying it, but you know, it's like comedy is, you know, so I think some of the people I watch on YouTube are funny to me. You know, like even people who are doing reviews, and, you know, sometimes I'm like cracking up on YouTube. I mean, yeah, on YouTube. Even like the brother Iyapo, who does like political commentary and conscious commentary. Sometimes he's funny. I be cracking. So I don't know. But I got out of the habit of watching Lifetime because I'm like, I don't want to be depressed. I stopped listening to Sade because it's like, I really like Sade, but it's like, it's never as good as the first time. Oh, as a woman, I'm just so sad in love. And it's like, I'm never going to find a husband, you know. And see, I stopped listening to Sade and I got married for the second time. But anyway, you know, I just couldn't take it. So, but I do want to see this documentary, so I do need to program it in. How do you spell Iyapo channel? I couldn't find it. It's an acronym for, if you aren't angry, you aren't paying attention. IYAPO. Oh no, if you aren't pissed off, Iyapo, you aren't paying attention. So it's IYAPO. YAPIA, yeah, Yappa, and he'll usually jump on the line sometimes. So I've said it correctly before, but I have to look at it. And I was listening to one of his videos yesterday, and he had another word, like an acronym, but it was like a word. And I'm like, oh, I want to use it. Now I already forgot it. And I tried to type it twice so I could, yeah, tell him I sent you. Because he sent people over here. And he has like kind of that drier sense of humor. But he's sharp. He's sharp. Okay. So I got off track. And go check out Queen Bianca Brooks. I don't know if you're a content creator, but make a comment after the playback so that I can go check out your channel if you are a content creator, because you know we all try to support everybody we need to support, or you know, if you can support the people, you can't force people. But okay, okay. So can you tell if somebody is a cheater by listening to their voice? Have you ever been cheated on in a relationship? If I've been cheated on in a relationship, I didn't know it. Now, I haven't had a gazillion relationships. I mean, I've been married twice, but they are like long-term, like 10 years, you know, go past 10 years now. So, you know, I don't have that much experience out here in these streets. Geek Squad may have worked with FBI to surveil customers' computers for nearly a decade, report reveals. So the Geek Squad, that's like a major brand. Like it's a you go to the electronics store. What is the name of the electronics store? You know, I've been there before. I can't think of the name, but you know, you can go and you can buy speakers in there, and you can buy computers in there. I think they sell phones, but they have a Geek Squad. You can go and get stuff fixed there. And one time I tried to go get a computer fixed there, but it was like the computer was so old. They're like, why are you trying to get this fixed? Just buy a new one. Best Buy. Hey, what's up, Mary Jane? Yeah, Best Buy. So they, you know, and I'm like, well, I'm trying to get it fixed because why? Can it be fixed? I'm not a fan of just throwing stuff away. Just, I don't know. It kind of gets on my nerves. But so yeah, the Geek Squad, they say, has been surveilling customers' computers. So we have this impression in the United States. Hey, Rowdy Chica 59, welcome in, girl. We have this impression in the United States that we're like, you know, that there's like a propaganda that we're like free, and that, you know, we're free of being, you know, surveilled by the government, and that, you know, now as black folks, a lot of times our illusions get shattered more often than, you know, white folks do. But still, you know, I notice I even still buy into it. Like, you know, with this whole thing with Zero, I'm like, what? He's saying something about our FBI? How dare he? And then I'm like, wait a second. 2 minutes ago, I was talking about the FBI and COINTELPRO, and they've been spying on us and, you know, black folks, and, you know, putting out misinformation. So, you know, our government and our system has the illusion and has the propaganda, and we talk a good game, or they talk a good game, but I guess, you know, a good game is talked by all, but what happens in practice is sometimes very different, or probably often very different. Particularly, you know, the lower you are on the hierarchy, the higher you are on the hierarchy, the more the stuff applies to you. The lower you are on the hierarchy, the less the land of the free, home of the brave, or whatever the propaganda is, applies to you. Gambian footballer tackling marriage. Oh, so this one footballer, as in they say football American in the rest of the world, but we say soccer. I mean, we say football, but they say football, we say soccer. So soccer. So this young woman is a soccer player, like a soccer player. I want to switch my orientation, but y'all, she plays soccer, what we would call soccer here. And she's like getting to the age 18, 19, and her family is like, cut out all that athletic stuff and go on and get married. But she wants to be like a professional athlete, and she's focused on, you know, on what she's focused on. So, you know, I guess just kind of like highlighting the pressure that women have, young women, older women have throughout the world to be validated and to be, you know, valuable by being a wife. You know, if you're not a wife, whatever you're doing has no value. The only value that you have is as a wife and a mother. Some people feel and believe. And, you know, how do you, you know, kind of find your own identity that may or may not include being a wife or a mother? International Women's Day stories of love amid Eastern Ghoutas bombs. Oh, it was like an image of like a mother. It was like an illustration, and it was like a woman shielding a baby, a child, and then there was like a city. It was a really interesting image. But anyway, India's Supreme Court restores love jihad marriage. So there's this big thing throughout the world, and I guess we have little peeps of it in this country, but this hostility or tension between Muslims and, well, in this country, it's Muslims and Hindus. You know, like there's like this woman had married a young woman. I don't know how young she is. That's a whole nother question. Is she a woman or is she a girl? Is she 15 or is she 20? I mean, you know, but anyway, she had married a Muslim person and it was like a big deal. And they, you know, nullified the marriage. Her family was upset. And now the Supreme Court, the India Supreme Court has restored the marriage. But just like all of this tension and drama, like, and I think it must be more than religion, but I'm still trying to process and understand, you know, I guess because I don't feel like, oh, now, I have had the experience of feeling like and observing and sometimes feeling like some people who are Christian, it's almost like if you don't believe what they believe, then you're going to hell, you're a heathen, your beliefs don't mean anything, your beliefs aren't anything. But I never really grew up that way. You know, I guess my experience was like there are so many people in the world who believe so many different things. And then as I've gotten older, I feel like, well, God speaks to everybody the way that God speaks to them. I can't know how God is speaking to you, and I can't know what's right for you. So I never got into the habit of feeling like, oh my gosh, if you believe, you know, in Christianity, I hate you. Or if you believe in Islam, I hate you. Or if you are a Buddhist, I hate you. Like, I just kind of feel like it's hard for me to like process and understand, you know, understand that. You know, I guess especially, you know, I feel like if you believe, you know, in hanging black people from trees, then I'm kind of like, and I don't even know if I hate you, but I'm like, I hate that belief. You know, that's not cool. I'm not cool with that. I'm not like, hey, believe what you believe. You know, I'm like, no, although what can I do about what you believe? But no, I don't believe that. I don't accept that. I don't embrace it. But your religious beliefs, I don't know. Saudi lion tamer held girl after attacked. I don't know what that is. Iran jails woman for removing headscarf in public. In this image, the women were like all like in black, like it was like 5 or 10 women, and they were like, you know how they wear the, they're in purdah, they wear the, you know, they be covered up, but they were like all in black. And it was just like such an interesting image, especially one of the things that I most enjoyed and noticed when I was in India was the women, a lot of the women had, you know, like were wearing kind of like loose, flowy clothes and had like a cloth around their head, not tied like mine is, but it would be loose. And they would be like draping it around their neck. And, you know, it was just like in the course of moving, it would come apart, come loose, and they would re-drape it. And it was just like so pretty and graceful. And it was like everywhere you looked, everybody looked like they were like, you know, dancing. And there was all of this beautiful fabric. And it was just like, oh my gosh. And I just cannot imagine. Like a lot of times I keep my hair covered because I don't, you know, well, I keep my hair covered for a lot of reasons, but it's not religious. It's just, you know, but I feel like, and if I want to have my head uncovered, what? Like, I just can't imagine somebody telling me, you know, you got to have your head covered. And then if, you know, if I took my headscarf off, then I'm going to jail. Like, that's like, again, just beyond my experience. And I know a lot of people in the world, a lot of women in the world have that experience, but it's just like, wow. Malingi Wala, thousands raised for chainsaw attack athlete. So we talked about this yesterday. This was a triathlete who was training with his buddy. Somebody pulled him off a bike and tried to chainsaw his legs off, but the chainsaw wasn't strong enough to go through his bones. So they were then trying to hack it, like it wouldn't work electronically or electrically. So they were just manually trying to hack off his legs. So the word, you know, has gotten out and money has been raised for, you know, his treatment, or money continues to be raised. His name is spelled MHLENGIGWALA. And I think that he's South African. And his partner's theory was that, you know, he thinks that the voices that they heard were Nigerian, and they're like, well, he don't have any enemies, so, you know, he seemed like a nice guy. So is it like hateration, like athletic competition, like they, you know, like the ice skaters when they knocked a woman in the knee, and now they sawing off people's leg, trying to saw off people's legs. Oh my gosh. Paralympic Games, no joint Korean march amid flag dispute. So I think the Paralympics usually happen after the Olympics, and I think the Paralympics are for people who are differently abled. Like, you know, they may have a leg missing or arm, or, you know, I shouldn't say missing, but they might have one leg instead of two, or, you know, I think that's what the Paralympics are. But I think they usually follow the Olympics, not immediately. But anyway, they're going on. They're in Korea now, but North Korea and South Korea are not marching under a joint Korean flag. So that's, you know, more about North Korea to launch new TV soap operas. North Korea sounds like a dismal place to live, you know, but I don't know. I've never lived there, but you get that impression. Reality check. Has the rate of executions doubled in Saudi Arabia? Excuse me. So someone who was like an official, like let's say they're a British official and they're assigned to Saudi Arabia, and she said something to the effect of, you know, there have been in the last 6 months rates of executions have doubled in Saudi Arabia. But that's not actually true. But I think that it's like within the last year, the rates have doubled as much as it's able to be ascertained, because there's no official count of executions. Theoretically, in this country, and then there was like a list of like the top 20 countries with executions, and the U.S. was like up there. I don't know if it was 20, but it wasn't a whole bunch, because you figure if it's 54 countries in Africa, that's just on the continent of Africa. How many countries are there in the world? And for known executions, the U.S. is like way up there for, you know, executing people. Now they had China at the tippity tip top. Now China, it was like 1,000. In the U.S. it was like 20. It was like once you got out of those top 3, the amount of known executions were small. And you know, a lot of these countries don't report that they've executed people. Theoretically, in this country, when someone dies of the death penalty, I think that counts as execution. But is it a state-sponsored execution when a police officer who is paid by the government shoots somebody in the back or guns somebody down on the street? Does that count as an execution? Because to me, it seems like an execution, you know? But I don't think they're counting that in those numbers. But I think but the point is that even in the scope of the world, the United States is very violent. That's the point that I took away from it. And there's this whole thing in Saudi Arabia where for years women have not been able to drive. And now there's this new crown prince there's like someone who seems to be in line to be the next leader of Saudi Arabia. So he made a rule, if I'm not mistaken, that now women can drive in Saudi Arabia. And about 2 or 3 years ago on Twitter, within the last couple of years, there have been women who have been driving and uploading footage, and some of them getting arrested, to just like protest not being able to drive. But this person is trying to be like more progressive maybe, but then at the same time that women are allowed to drive, he's arresting people. It's really hard. Politics is like, even in this country, sometimes it's difficult for me living here with strong opinions to tease out what's going on and what it all means. And when you talk about a whole nother country, a whole nother culture, and you're getting the news filtered through, you know, the corporations, it's hard to know what's going on. So, you know, that's what's going, you know, just talking about trying to tease it out, trying to make sense of something, trying to get the trends and understand. Ole Miss acknowledged its historic ties to slavery with plaques instead of removing Confederate symbols. Now, I reported this story a couple of days ago, but it was so long we had been talking that I didn't even talk about it, and I hadn't read the story. So when I reported it, it was just that they put plaques on the campus acknowledging their ties to slavery. But this piece coming off of Atlanta Black Star is like, instead of removing the stuff, they just put the plaques up being like, oh, this statue here, this person enslaved people. So there were a couple things. One thing in the article, at least, I cannot stand. I feel like we have to be very, I would love for us to be very meticulous about referring to Africans as enslaved Africans instead of slaves. Because I've noticed that even when we talk about people who have taken their freedom and are living freely, when we're talking about them back in the day, we refer to he was a slave that freed he was a freed slave. He was a free slave. And it's like, no, he wasn't a free slave. He was a person. He was an African. He was a person of African descent. He wasn't even enslaved at the time, but we're still using the language to refer to people as slaves. And it's like there's this idea that there's like this designation, like y'all, you just a slave. Like that's who you are. And it's like slavery. The act of enslaving a person is an act of enslaving a person, and it's an ongoing, continuous thing. Like you don't just say, ding, you're a slave, you got black skin, and then all of a sudden I'm a slave. No, everybody wants to be free. And that's why there were all sorts of measures in place to keep enslaving people day in and day out, minute in and minute out, because it's not like some permanent designation. And I feel like we have to stop talking about it like that. And Ole Miss has like, it's like a problematic thing. But, throughout the country, there's been this conversation, the second part of the story, this conversation and this movement to remove the statues, But Ole Miss took the approach of, instead of removing the statue, they put up a sign saying this person enslaved or, had 26 slaves. I don't know exactly what language they used because the article was mixed in how they used the language. And then they were talking about some of the buildings on campuses were built by enslaved Africans, but, 2 or 3 of the original 5 still survive and were built. But anyway, that's what's going on at Ole Miss and in this country. Gorgeous photos show how people are celebrating International Women's Day around the world. I didn't look at it, but I love a photo essay. I like pictures. I can't breathe. FBI investigate police who beat and tasered black man for jaywalking. And I can't stand those headlines, for jaywalking, because I feel like he didn't beat or tase that man for jaywalking. He beat and tased that man for being black and because he was in a position of power and felt that he could do it because he angry, because he crazy, because he racist, whatever. But the jaywalking, if it was like, it's not for jaywalking. It's for all these other reasons. I don't really know how to articulate it, but those headlines really, really get on my nerves. But the FBI is investigating the situation. And I don't know, I guess I kind of feel like, yay, but sometimes I feel like this country has me so jaded and my experience has me so jaded that it's just like, Oh, but speaking of me being jaded, I did add to my list of, and if you have people to add to the list of darker skinned women with lighter skinned men, and my mother helped me, and we also included, women who were married to non-black people. So dang, there was somebody I want to say, and Al Roker and his wife, what's her name? It's Roberts. Her name is somebody Roberts, but they're about the same color, or she's darker, so I just want to add that. And then there were some other people, but I have to look at the list. NFL draft prospect says he was asked at the combine if he is gay and if his mother is a prostitute. I don't know what a combine is. I guess it's some sort of training or hazing situation to get them prepared for what they might be, for being in the NFL. Because I was kind of like, oh my gosh, but he didn't seem to be upset by it. I don't know why it was a headline. I don't know if it's common to ask people that or not. But anyway, McDonald's is flipping its iconic golden arches upside down in celebration of women, and people are freaking out. Now, what was funny to me is I'm like, they flipped it upside down. It was like somehow in my head, I just couldn't visualize what it meant. And when I saw it, I'm like, oh, a W, M-W, duh. Like, I don't know why. I was like, they flipped it. What would it look like? What would an M look like flipped upside down? I'm so confused. But anyway, it's a W. And some people are like, again, just like with Kanye West's wife, they like stay in your lane. With McDonald's, they like stay in your lane. Just flip the burgers. Don't be, and International Women's Day is fake. And, women are fine. I don't know why these people feel like they need to have a special day. And, so I guess, and again, I just feel like, I guess I don't really care. Like, I feel like this is a capitalist country, and, you know, people buy burgers, and if one person's consciousness is raised by seeing the W, then, you know, I kind of, but I guess then there's also the thing of corporations co-opting things, like, you know, this whole breast cancer awareness thing where, you know, you can't use that pink ribbon unless you pay them people a bunch of money. And then they use that money to do research, basically to keep perpetuating cancer, not trying to solve cancer, because they're not publicizing and letting people know that if you change your eating habits, the incidence of cancer are greatly reduced. Oh, no, 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 no. Because they want to put the pink ribbon on BS food that's probably contributing to people having issues with breast cancer. But anyway, so I guess that's the co-optation, you know, of, yes, we're here for women. We're here for the people with breast cancer, but are you really here for women, McDonald's? So, Austria attack. Afghan man admits Vienna stabbings. Cartoon Network rolls out largest ever slate, deepens creative bench. So I had seen an article a long time ago, and they were like, you know, there aren't any, there was this TV show, there's this cartoon thing I used to watch that had like a black family. Now I can't even remember what it was called. But they're like, you know, that's the only, you know, you really just don't see black folks even in the comics, you know, and not comics, but you know, the cartoons. And it was kind of like, now I'm not a big cartoon person, but it was like, yeah, you really don't, you know, and the person. So that just made me wonder, as they deepen their creative bench, are there more colored folks in there, and how are, you know, black folks and other folks being represented? Everything you've ever been told about how much water you're supposed to drink is a lie. And here's the real rule you should follow. So what I always tell y'all is that, you know, if you weigh 100 pounds, 50 ounces is the minimum. That's my target. That's how I handle it. And this article is like, don't even worry about that. If you're thirsty, drink water. If you're not thirsty, don't drink water. Coffee counts, soda counts, all of that stuff contributes to your hydration. Don't even worry about it. But the thing about it, and then they do mention, oh, when people get older, sometimes their sense of thirst goes away. But you know, I just felt like it was a bunch of propaganda and bull for the pharmaceutical companies, because now this is just my personal experience. I don't know about other people's experience, but I never felt thirsty. And I spent most of my life not drinking any water. I would never drink anything except that every once in a while I would feel thirsty, like maybe 6 times a year, let's say. And then sometimes when I would go to like McDonald's or whatever, and I would get a Happy Meal, I might get a meal, not a Happy Meal, but you know, I might get a drink when I went to McDonald's, but I might not. And so I was not drinking really any water. But I'll tell you what, my system was working. Even when I became a vegetarian, my system was held up in a certain way. I had headaches all the time. I was getting colds all the time, but I wasn't feeling thirsty. Every once in a while I'd feel thirsty. When I started focusing on drinking water, my system started flowing. I stopped having headaches every day. I stopped getting colds. I mean, I still get sickly occasionally, like especially with my cycle. But I mean, like I was having a cold every winter. I was being sick. And it would be like, I would get sick and I would like just never really get well. Like I would have a cough that would just keep lasting forever. And, you know, even when I changed my eating, the big thing that I noticed is water. So I just felt like, why are you out here? And then they're like, and you know, the thing you have to watch out for is that if you drink too much water, you could get, I can never remember what it is, but there's something you can get when you drink too much water, like water poisoning or whatever it's called. But how many people, do you know anybody who's got water poisoning? Because I know a lot of people who have issues with dehydration, and I feel like a lot of people's health issues are dehydration. We just don't call them dehydration. So this thing like, oh no, don't drink too much water because you could get sick. I feel like that's some bull. Most people don't drink enough water and they're sick. If you got a sickness, and I'm not a doctor, so you can take it or leave it, but if you drink you some, don't listen to this bull. Drink you some water and try to drink you some more water. A Harvard doctor says these are the best exercises for your body. And what surprised me about this, one, they had walking on there. That didn't surprise me. Walking, swimming, you know. But they had Kegel exercises on there. I was like, wow. I was just shocked to see that on the list. And I didn't read the whole, I think I just read 3 or 4 things. And, you know, beloved student who wanted to be a nurse was killed in mysterious school shooting in Alabama. And I think this is happening right now as we speak. A young black woman, she was 17. She hadn't even turned 18 yet. She was shot in a school in Alabama. She was shot and killed. So rest in peace to her, and just, you know, prayers out for her family and her community and the school. And, you know, and then another student was shot but not killed, and a teacher was injured. So I've looked at I looked at the headline, but then the other article I looked at, it was like the gun has been recovered, but they're still not saying who shot the gun. What are witnesses saying? I mean, what's going on? And this is a school that had metal detectors. So was it I mean, who shot what's going on? Why is it a secret? Usually when the stuff happened, they start speculating, and, you know, I haven't watched it on the news. I've only seen it on my news feed, but I'm like, why aren't they revealing who had the gun? What happened? And so, you know, yeah, so I don't know. But they had just started talking in that community about, you know, how to reduce gun violence or whatever. So, you know, another school shooting. This one probably won't get, you know, as much attention. I don't know. I'm like, did a safety officer shoot? You know, like, what happened? Did y'all hear anything? Do you know? We got questions. We want answers. Poor baby. But anyway, again, rest in peace, and just prayers out, and, you know, just hugs from God and all of us to her family. It's International Women's Day. Here are 35 quotes from the strongest feminist voices across the world. I couldn't get very far into the article. I was just curious to see who they, you know, if they were all white folks or, you know. And they had Hillary Clinton. They had Mahala. Is that the little baby girl? The young Middle Eastern Indian girl. I don't even know what Mahala, I think her name is Mahala. I don't even know what she's famous for. I don't know if she was the child who somebody shot her and tried to kill her, and she survived and she continued. I don't remember, but she's like the youngest one to win maybe the Nobel Peace Prize. Like, I've seen her name, but I've never even, and I've seen her around. I've seen her speaking. I've seen her on news shows, but they had her, but I've never taken the time to just sit and pay attention to who she is. They had her, they had Hillary Clinton. I only saw like 3 or 4. Oh, they had Jill Steinen from Mrs. Magazine. Ms. MS period magazine. Barbaric Texas judge under fire for torturing defendant with stun gun during trial. So he didn't like the way that the man was, you know, answering the questions. And so the judge was, I think he had something attached to him, and the judge would, if the man didn't answer the questions the way he wanted him to, you know, if he felt that he was being smart, then he would stun him. And the man didn't want to go back to court because he didn't want to be tortured. But it's not cool to torture people. Like, that's like inhumane, and there's supposed to be a system in place. Like, you know, people are supposed to, now we know people get tortured and beat up in jail, but you're supposed to, if you're like in contempt of court, the judge is supposed to say, you know, I find you in contempt of court, and then they take you away and lock you up or whatever. You can't be in here stun gunning people, electrocuting them because they give you a smart answer in court, judge. Like, what kind of barbarism is this? What country you think this is? America? Oh, it's America. So anyway, here's every weapon the U.S. Army gives to its soldiers. And I just saw like 2 or 3 of them, but I was kind of like, oh, I never really thought about, like, so when you're in the military, do you get like 3 guns? Do you get 1 gun? Do you get 12 guns? Do you get a gun and a grenade? Like, how does that go? I never really thought about it. So that the headline just made me think about it. Square's Cash App now supports direct deposits for paychecks. So you can have like a bank account without having a bank account. And I guess that's the market they're trying to hit. Balkrishna Doshi, Indian wins prestigious Pritzker Prize. Oh, I think that was something in architecture, and it was the first Indian person to win that. Canada's homeless piano player dies at 46. 46 is so young. So rest in peace to that person. I don't know what their name is. Without women, the world stops. I hate when they don't put people's names and stuff, but I guess if they said Joe Blow, I wouldn't know who he was. So they're trying to give you a title that makes it relevant to people who don't know the person's name. Without women, the world stops. Rows of cows in Australia killed by lightning strike. So maybe all of the cows were like touching the fence, and then the lightning struck and they all got electrocuted and killed. But I didn't see, well, it was about 4. For some reason I thought it was 6, but it was about 4 cows, and they were like laid out, and it was like, Some Black Americans were still living in chattel slavery 100 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, historian discovers. And, I feel like the thing about slavery in the Emancipation Proclamation is that I feel like it's always been people who are enslaved. And I don't want to say that it always will be, but we continue to have people who are enslaved. And, just like we saw a story probably about maybe a year ago of a man who had a restaurant who had a mentally someone whose IQ wasn't the highest, who worked in his restaurant, but he was like forced to work like 20 hours a day, and he lived there and he barely fit. It's like he was enslaved by and he was found out and reported, and you find, like the family who had the children chained up and they weren't feeding them. I feel like it's all kinds of mess and confusion and cruelty and craziness that goes on, throughout the world. And there are some people who will get away with whatever they can get away with. If I could chain you up and make you work for me for free, and then I could get the money, I'd do that. That's how some people are, but it's not the same as having a system where, which this country had, where it's like it's free and it's legal. You don't have to hide it. You don't have to sneak. You could just, in public, this my slave and I'm beating them, and, I treat them however I want them because I own them. That's a whole different thing from, in other places when it's discovered, or in this country when it's discovered, it's like that's illegal. But even when slavery was officially outlawed, it wasn't really outlawed. We've been talking about, in the country now, more consciously, this whole system of the prison industrial complex as a continuation of the system of enslaving Africans. And if you have not read The New Jim Crow, it was a hard read. It was for me, but that just totally shifted my whole perspective on it. But not only that, but we know that there were other systems and other ways of getting, we knew about sharecroppers, but the fact that, 100 years later, there were still people who were sharecropping, and, that it wasn't like, oh, this is the day of freedom and everybody in the whole country is free. We know that from Juneteenth Day that some people, in Texas or in other parts found out later. Some people left before the official day. That it's not like a hard, firm. It's just whatever, just like how the enslavement was. It's whatever the person who was the enslaver wanted to do. So it's not like any rule like, oh, Black folks can't learn to read. Some people owned Black people and they taught them to read. In different times, it was legal and illegal, and, it shifts and it changes, and, and I remember seeing this movie of this woman who was born, and when I saw that movie, it reminded me of living in, it was a documentary, but she was born like in 1949, and she like got free in like the 60s, and she said that this was like in Mississippi, that they were kept in a, like a manger, but like a barn, not like a garage, but like a barn. And that, it was her father, her mother, her 3 or 4 sisters, that they would, every week, the men would bring her and her mother into the house and rape them. It didn't start with her until she was 8. She was old by the time they started raping her. But, it wasn't like from baby that they were raping her, but, and that they didn't really give them food. Sometimes they would throw them scraps, but they would be eating like worms and stuff out of and they were chained up. And then the father was like, he was trying to get free. Now, this is in in our lifetime, or almost my lifetime, and that her father got free and he was on the road and he told some people, I'm trying to get to the military, because somehow he had gotten some idea that if he could get to the military, he could help his family. And, the people were like, oh my gosh, you're trying to get to the military. Okay, we're going to take you there. And they took him right back to where did you come from? What happened? And he told them, and they took the man right back. And it reminded me, living in Mississippi, that, if you're in a city, it's one thing, but there are like so many communities and so many places where so many people own so much land. And it's like, you could be on that land and, you couldn't even walk, it's like, it's just land upon land. And who knows what the hell is going on that land. And like this story, like fit right into that. When I heard the story, I was like, I could see that. I could believe that. Like, that's credible. And he happened to run into the people who knew their owner and took him right on back to the owner. So anyway, I believe it. There was slave. I think people are still enslaved now. And shit, quiet as it's kept, I really think, some of them are right in Mississippi. And probably some other places in this country. And a lot of this, because I had some encounters with people where I felt like they were looking at me. I don't know what's in nobody's heart or mind, but sometimes I'm like, they're like, you supposed to be, and just like looking at me like they just want to, like the nerve of you. Like you could, like I got slaves. Like, yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but, Indonesia zoo condemned over smoking orangutan. So somebody threw, and I guess it's so common in Indonesia for people to throw cigarettes in the cages or whatever with the animals, and the orangutan got one that was still lit and he was smoking. And they say it's another animal someplace who had a smoking habit. He died at 53, the animal, because they couldn't get him to quit smoking. I am not a fan of zoos either, but that's a whole nother story. Harlem Globetrotters teach 109-year-old woman new tricks. I remember seeing the Harlem Globetrotters as a kid. It's funny that they're still around. White woman's reason for hitting African actor with bottle is puzzling. I don't know what her reason is. Is this the woman who's like, I could hit you, I could kill you, and I don't know. Because it's like, it's craziness. There's no like rational reason. Oh, he was jaywalking, so I had to shoot him. That's not rational. That doesn't make any sense. That's not a reason. Alexa is randomly laughing and is creepy as hell. Updated. I don't have, but I guess, these things where you're like, hey, Alexa, I need dry cleaning, or whatever you say, the thing is laughing. It seems like something from a science fiction movie, like everybody's going to have an Alexa in their house, and then they're going to start laughing, then they're going to start walking and choking you like, ha, 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 ha. I don't have an Alexa or any of that stuff, so it seems like it fits in. Georgetown requires all residents to be gun owners to deter crime. This is coming off the griot, but it reminds you of, when at a certain point in history in certain communities, white folks all had to be armed because there was a fear that there are so many black folks. There are way more black folks than white folks, so we have to be armed because they're going to raise up. One of these days, these Negroes going to get tired of this stuff, and they're going to raise up and be like, we sick and tired of this bull, and we got to be ready with our guns. So there were certain communities where people were required to have guns back in the day, and I guess today. Racist woman calls black kids N-word and breaks beer bottle over parent's head. Why some firms are using models to sell cars. And I'm like, why is that a headline? I thought, I'm in Detroit. We had an international car show. There are always models next to the cars. Like, is that, but I guess some companies have tried to like move away from it. Like, what does a woman, a scantily clad woman, have to do with selling a car? And some of the women who are models are like, well, everyone likes to look at a beautiful woman. Even I like to look at a beautiful woman. But I think we've bought into certain, it's like as a society, there are certain ideas that are kind of like pushed on us. Like sometimes as black people, a lot of times we buy into ideas about black folks that are not necessarily true, but it's like part of the propaganda that's pushed on all of us, white and black, and, and the same thing with women, We're so used to looking at each other, at women through the male gaze, that we just think that's normal, you know, like, because we've been trained that way. We've been conditioned that way. Michael B. Jordan vows to adopt inclusion writer for his production company's projects. So this inclusion writer is a big deal. Now, I think it's interesting that, you know, the white woman came out and said inclusion writer. And so now the black man is like, he's going to have inclusion writers. Is he going to have inclusion writers like include more women and include more black and brown folks? Are the women going to have inclusion writers, the white women, that include more black folks and more women? Like, it'll be interesting to see how all of this unfolds. Rivonia trial tapes, Mandela case heard after 6 decades. So I think the Rivonia trial, I'm not exactly clear, but I think that that's when Nelson Mandela was first sent to jail. But I'm not really clear. But I guess after 6 decades, that's 60 years ago. I don't really know. 60 years ago. But I guess these tapes from the transcripts are being made public, because this is the second or third headline that I've seen. So maybe as people start listening to them, you know, we'll get more clarity, or maybe I'll just break down and read the article, time permitting. 1 student dead after accidental shooting at Alabama high school. We talked about that. Catholic school deletes photo of student in blackface due to backlash. So it was a Black History event. The child was Colin Powell. Is that the guy who worked with the Republican administration, and he was like, oh, he's going to be the first black president. Remember Colin Powell? And so the child came to school for Black History Month dressed as Colin Powell, he said, and he was in blackface. But what's confusing to me is that I think that it's a Catholic school, but I think that the child is like in the 4th grade. Like, it's not like a teenager. It's like a child. So their parent dressed them up. But the way that the story was written, it was almost like the child had put themselves in blackface. And then the other thing that's confusing to me is Colin Powell is so light. What you need blackface for Colin Powell? Now, if you was trying to get this color, maybe, but Colin Powell ain't he basically, I don't know, ain't he basically white-skinned almost? Daggone there. But anyway, they had the picture up like, oh, this is our Black History Month celebration. And one of the teachers is like, why is that child in blackface? And they were like, oh, no one said anything about it. We'll take it down. They just so, these people just act like they're so ignorant of, like, it's in the news. We've been talking about it for 20, 30 years. Like, they just act like it's just like such a like new concept. Like, oh, you're offended by blackface? Well, we'll take it down. But if she hadn't said anything, you didn't know, you like, I don't understand. Yeah. Faking the funk. A mentally ill inmate unexpectedly releases, a mentally ill inmate unexpectedly released after video shows officers used excessive force. I think the somebody took video in the jail of what was going on in the mental health ward of the prison. Now, you know, saying people was crazy is like a common tactic in, you know, abuse situations. Because like even when we were enslaved, they had a whole, you know, drapetomania or whatever, or however you pronounce it. But this idea that like, oh my gosh, these black folks are so crazy because they want to be free. I mean, they're certifiably mentally ill. We got it in these books. It's the illness, drapetomania. You know, like they are, and women, the same thing. It's like when, you know, it's a common thing to call people crazy when they're counter to the rich white men with property and power. They're like, oh, they're crazy. So even the fact that the inmate was in the mental health ward is sort of like, are they really struggling with issues of mental health? Or is it that the system thinks that they must be crazy if they're not going along with the BS of the system? I don't know. Women footballers born with talent but held back by prejudice. Again, I think these are soccer players, or what we would call soccer players. Angel Laketta Moore joins Fox comedy pilot Rail. Shay Buckner joins ABC's Get Christy Love. I think one or both of these folks were black folks, but I don't know them, or brown. A former Chinese state prosecutor criticized Xi Jinping's plan to rule indefinitely. And now he's been arrested. That's what Zero want to do. If you criticize him, he wants you to be arrested and executed. The only people he want around, he like people in other, like a dictator or whatever. Like, I want to be president for life, And don't you say nothing bad about me or we gonna kill you. Lock her up. Lock her up. Officer Zach Rosen, who beat up a suspect on video, just got his job back. South Carolina Senate brings back electric chair because lethal injection drugs are hard to get. So they probably stopped using the electric chair or minimized it because of the cruelty. You're not supposed to have cruel or unusual punishment, and you're not supposed to kill people in a cruel way. And it's like we talked about it before because somebody who just recently got executed was like fighting the whole way, and they say the drugs wasn't working right. But it's kind of like, how do you execute me in a way that's not cruel? It just like, even the idea of like, I'm gonna kill you, that seems like cruelty, to me. Like, I think it would be better, like, if you were going to kill me, just, like, cut my head off. Don't be like, I'm going to kill you. First, I'm going to stab you. Then I'm going to put a lethal thing in your veins. Then, it's like, I'm like, oh, like, it's stressing me out. It's like, it's torture. It's harassment. It's awful. Congolese mother separated from child by U.S. border agents released. So they had come illegally into the country. The child, I think, is 7 or 8, and they separated her. So anyway, the mom has been released. South Carolina, we talked about that. After declaring a state of emergency, Sri Lanka has banned Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. So Sri Lanka is one of these places. Remember, we were talking about the Muslims and the Buddhists fighting. Sri Lanka is one of these places where it's like, and I think that the way the story is, it's like the Buddhists are fighting the Muslims, and I think it's kind of like supposed to be like the way I'm reading it. It's like they're attacking them, and so they done cut off social media. So I can't be like, here's, like how when the cops are like, stop recording, because you want to have a video to be like, this is what's really going on, even though what does the video do? But it does keep us conscious and aware of the bull, but it doesn't mean anything in their court system, because they're just doing, I guess, what they're supposed to do, kill us and terrorize us. I guess they're just doing their job. So why they gonna fire them for doing their job, I guess. MoviePass pulls unused app location features from its iOS app. So we've been talking about MoviePass and this whole thing, but this is coming off of WhatsApp. I'm a Engadget. But I also saw an article coming off of a major blog. The Trump administration will allow trophies of hunted elephants into the U.S. after waffling due to a public outcry. So Obama said, no, we're not going to allow it because the amount of elephants getting killed was going up in the world. We don't have them here. Was going, like in Zimbabwe, I guess it's legal to kill them or something. And so the people would go from here, and then they go and be like, ooh, yay, I get to kill an elephant. And then they wanted to bring it back and be like, look, I killed an elephant. And so there were like more and more elephants being killed. So the Obama administration was like, no, y'all can't be bringing that in here. And so the numbers started going down and down and down. And then Trump is like, well, I think, yay, we want to kill elephants and black folks, and yay. And the people were like, no, because a lot of times some people are more organized and more upset about elephants and animals getting hurt than black folks getting hurt. But anyway, so they were like, no. And then the Trump administration didn't say anything, but then they quietly went on and passed because it's rich white men with property and power out here hunting elephants. You go elephant hunting. I mean, you have to have certain resources to go over to another country just for the sake of, killing animals, and then you have to import them back in. I mean, that's expensive. That's not a pastime for, that's his friends and, his people. Reward increased for information on missing CDC worker Timothy Cunningham. So, that story has been out there for a while. It seems like it's been a couple weeks now. And so they're increasing the award. Okay, so we've looped back to our stories from yesterday. So that's it. That's the end of this edition of Notes on the News Feed. I didn't watch any shows yesterday. I don't think I'm behind on anything. I am theoretically, or yes, I am catching up on The Quad and Black Lightning. But that's it for today. So Is there anything important in the news that you want to talk about, or do we need to be aware? Did anything happen while we were on this conversation on this live? Do we need to take cover? So write that out now. But in the meantime, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for being you, being fabulous, and being fabulous you. And today is the best day ever. So sing it with me, everybody. I want to get a new rhythm for it, or I want to play around with it, but I'm not like musically oriented, so it always sounds the same, more or less. But be you. Be fabulous. Be fabulous, you. Be you. Be fabulous. Be fabulous, you. Be you. Be fabulous. Thank you, Mary Jane. Peace, y'all.